What's up, my fellow lionesses and lions? Welcome to the Project Lioness podcast, where we are here to disrupt the mainstream narrative when it comes to health, holism, and human consciousness. We are here to share bold truths about health and life from a female perspective. This episode is brought to you by our team, Inspire Co., where we stand for your health being inspired by choice rather than being inhibited by chance. Thank you for being here and joining in on these raw, real, and powerful conversations. We hope our show brings you inspiration and empowerment to overcome challenges, reclaim your life, and ultimately pursue your mission with power, purpose, and play. Now, let's get into the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Project Lioness podcast. This is your host, Dr. Mel, and I am joined again by Michael.
I'm co-hosting today.
Co-hosting today.
It's the Mel show with a little bit of me.
Yeah, that's how it should be. We are even more well caffeinated and talking about energy today, but not necessarily caffeinated energy, but different types of energy, and asking, what is your energy level? And asking you, listener, what is your energy level? Are you someone who's drudging through life uninspired, or are you completely jumping up out of your bed and excited to start the day? So we're going to be jamming on that. We're at the Inspire Immersion in Costa Rica. This is our first international immersion. It's been awesome.
It's been a good time.
Yeah. And this place is absolutely beautiful. Tesquita Jungle Lodge. If you haven't seen them or heard of them, check them out. They do a lot of really beautiful work for the planet, restoration projects. It's been a really great time. It's been an awesome place to hang out and learn and grow and expand and explore. So today we're going to be talking about energy. And something that I notice when people talk about energy is they often think it's this like woo-woo thing. And I remember when I first started learning about energy and the concepts of energy, I'm a doctor. I like science. I like data. I like to dive deep into the biology and chemistry and physiology. And when I first started learning about energy, I was like, what the hell is this stuff? And so I've dove pretty deep to understand it from not only what people think is the woo-woo perspective, but really bridging the woo-woo spiritual into more of the science. Do you talk about energy at all, Michael, with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, energy is everything. I talk about our energetic frequency and the frequency that we carry and how to increase that frequency and to do it in a way where we can sustain it over time. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, everything is vibration and some sort of frequency, whether it's light or sound. So I talk about it a lot.
That's the base of everything in the universe. And Tesla talked about that, right? If you can understand the world that we're living in the form of energy and frequency, you've come pretty far and can learn to master your life. So at an atomic level, everything is vibrating molecules. Everything is, at that sense, some level of frequency. And even if you go smaller, we're really just talking about vibrating space. So it's not something that's woo-woo. If you open up a physics book, you're probably going to hit the words frequency, energy, and we're here to talk about it today, specifically how it relates to you as a human being. And so if you can get that basic concept that all of your cells, which are comprised of atoms, are made of energy, then you can understand, okay, I am an energetic being, not from a woo-woo perspective, but literal physics. And so something that really will impact your energy and that I see and talk about with clients, whether it's in the office or my coaching clients, is the ability to shift your energy state. And it's not, as crazy as it sounds. And that comes down to a basic phenomena known as cellular respiration. When your body can breathe appropriately and take in oxygen and actually conduct cellular respiration, your cells function differently, your brain functions differently. Oftentimes people who have low energy, there's a lot of different things that go into play. However, the number one thing to start with is, how is your body consuming oxygen? Because as human beings, we can't function right unless we're able to utilize and consume and convert oxygen appropriately in every single cell of your body, as well as your brain. You know, a lot of people talk about when they have low energy, they're fatigued, they're exhausted, all these things. And it all comes back to the foundation and the basic principles of how is your body using oxygen, number one. Anything to add to that?
No, it's I mean, we look at the idea of metabolism, and again, a lot of times with my clients, they're thinking about like food and the movement of food through the body, which is a form of metabolism, but we forget that the most basic form of metabolism in the body is the ability to extract oxygen from the atmosphere and to use it for literally every single function within the body. So
Yep.
it's a good point.
Turn it into ATP.
Yes,
Adenosine
exactly.
triphosphate.
Yes.
This isn't going to be a physiology lesson. We don't want to lose you guys, but really, how do we take this concept and actually apply it to things that matter in our life and doing things that you love and shifting your energy state? Because something that I see in the culture is people in this state of, well, I wish I could do that, but I don't have the energy. And I often see practice members who are like, I've tried everything, right? I've gone keto. I'm trying to sleep 8 hours a night. I feel like I'm drinking enough water and like I'm doing all the things. And yet they're still exhausted. And one of the things that I look at is, are you actually inspired by your life and living in alignment with your values? Or are you doing things that de-inspire you? And so Michael and I talk often about the core elements of health, right? You know, are you sleeping? Are you getting sunlight? Are you eating well? Are you drinking water? And a lot of people talk about these concepts, right? But there's this other element that I think that people are forgetting to touch on, and that's the element of inspiration. Not just from breathing in and being inspired by your life, no pun intended, but actually being connected to actions and behaviors that you feel you would love to do. Not that you have to do, that you need to do, but that you actually feel pulled by. And when you can live in that state, that's what I call the zone of inspiration or the zone of genius. I know you talk a lot about like higher self, lower self, but when we can live in our zone of inspiration, in our zone of genius, our body actually operates in a different energy state. We're able to consume oxygen differently. We're able to metabolize things differently. And it's not just, again, a cellular phenomena, but our brain starts to function differently. We're not living in our amygdala where we feel like we're chasing things or we're super emotional, we're super polarized. But when we operate from our zone of genius or our zone of inspiration and that energy level, you have the ability to navigate challenges with more poise, more grace, more balance, more groundedness, where things don't phase you as much and it doesn't send you and drive you into that sympathetic state of being. And for those of you who don't know, I mean, we've got a ton of episodes and content about the nervous system. And sympathetic is that go, go, go. You feel like you're in fight or flight, versus when you're in that energy state of the zone of genius, zone of inspiration, you're more centered and balanced, and you can navigate the flows of life and not feel like it totally derails you because you're pissed off at every email you get, you're angry at your coworkers, or you hate your job, or there's a myriad of other things we can talk about that we'll get into in this episode that can take you out of that zone of genius and zone of inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you make a really powerful point. And I think not a counterpoint, but another layer to that too is that if you are working on the things that inspire you and you're operating out of this zone of inspiration or zone of genius, there will be things that you do that don't necessarily inspire you. But when you can tie it again to your vision and your values and the things that are super important to you, I think that's an important piece of the puzzle to remember, because like, you know, obviously for me, health is the top value. And there's a lot of times where I know that the best thing I can do is go to the gym and I don't want to, but I still do it. And then I feel better afterwards. And that's just one small example of, you know, hundreds or thousands of examples where taking some sort of action at times we don't always feel the most inspired to do it beforehand, but afterwards we get that feeling of inspiration. So I just wanted to bring up that point as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, not everything in life is going to be 100% like, we only want to do this, because if that was the case, like, a lot of times we wouldn't do anything,
Right.
right? So I just wanted to bring that point up too. I think that's an important thing to touch on.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like counterintuitive, right? Where we think, oh, I'm low energy, I feel brain fog, maybe depression is a sign that you're out of your zone of genius, things like that, and mental health. And oftentimes people don't recognize if you can get your body moving, or maybe you do something that feels inspiring in the moment, whether it's art or getting out in nature, like we've been in nature all week, that can shift your energy state and shift the way that your brain is functioning to approach a problem in life, or perhaps connect to a different solution that maybe you wouldn't have had access to before, because you're literally not only shifting your physical body, but you're shifting how your brain is taking in energy and information, which can bring, I mean, nature is one of the greatest sources of inspiration, right? Or movement, right? You're actually moving oxygen through your body differently. And I know something that I've struggled with in the past, not as much anymore, but as an entrepreneur and a high achiever, my thought was like, well, I gotta drink coffee all day and go and do as much as I can in order to get stuff done. But at times, if I was like doing stuff all day, I'd be like, oh, where's my creativity? Where's my inspiration? And when you're doing stuff all the time and not taking that space to maybe move your body or shift your energy state in different ways, you're going to feel that depletion. You're going to feel some of that desperation of like, oh, I'm just drudging through the day and I'm not, again, inspired by my life. Hey everyone, it's Dr. Mel. I wanted to take a brief pause from our episode to say hello with you, to connect with you. If you're jamming and loving and resonating with what we're sharing on this episode, I'd love to connect with you. If you're feeling like you want more support and connection in your journey, reach out to us. You can do that at the link right here on the screen, and I look forward to connecting with you. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, and I think kind of to tie these points together, it's the understanding that like how you feel before and as well as after are both important when it comes to actions and behaviors you're taking, because a lot of times maybe you think something should inspire you and then you do it and then you feel even worse afterwards. Or maybe there's certain things that you're working on that you have a perception or belief that it should make you feel some certain way, but it does the opposite. That's a great thing. It's being able to audit those things in your life and how they show up, right? Like if you work super hard in your relationship, yet you always feel like shit about it, maybe you're not in the right relationship. It's just that could be, there's realism to that. Like your career too. You're like, yeah, if I keep working so hard and like I get this promotion, like that's going to inspire me to go further, but it doesn't. Maybe it's a sign that you're not in the right company or not in the right industry or not in the right field, right? So I think a lot of times it can be hard to accept that too, that you might be working on things that aren't inspired to you. Yeah. And there's this desire to just kind of push through and just keep working and doing it. And you mentioned the coffee and working long days, and like I have a lot of days like that, but I love it. Like I really am inspired by it. And I like go to bed, I'm like, man, I feel so good about what I did today. And I feel like, man, that sucked. Right. Yeah. Like, there's a big difference between that. And it can be challenging, or it can be scary to do that type of audit on the domains of your life and the things that you're working on, and recognizing like this isn't an alignment. And I think, the quicker you are, or the more accessible it is to actually address those things and to find something that's inspired to take those place rather than just kicking the can down the road. I mean, that's a surefire way to live with regret down the road, is to live uninspired, but to just go through the motions rather than to actually have like a pattern interrupt and do something different. So
one of my mentors, Nick Peterson, says, people prefer the misery of certainty rather than the misery of uncertainty, where we can get.
You mean the certainty of misery?
The certainty of, I always mess up that quote.
The certainty of misery, Nick, versus the misery of uncertainty.
Thank you. That's why you're here. Correct me.
I'm here at 6 whatever in the morning.
It's past 6 now.
Drinking coffee. 6 whatever.
But the same adage of that, same concept is we can get addicted to comfort, and although it's comfortable, you're completely uninspired. Yet when you're inspired and you're loving what you do, you have more ability and more energy to take risks, to be able to problem solve from a totally different vantage point. And something that I'm hearing you're speaking to is our language. So if you are considering or looking at or trying to become more self-aware of like, yeah, how do I know my energy level and how do I move into more of the zone of inspiration? One of the things you can look at that I teach in the Project Lioness cohort is called imperative languaging, which is the ability to check yourself with the words that you're using. So if you wake up and you're like, oh, I have to do this, I should do this, I must do this, those words can be indicators that you're living in alignment with someone else's values and from the injected values of people who you've subordinated to, either consciously or subconsciously. So that can be your parents. That could be organizations. That could be the culture where you think, oh, I have to do this because XYZ. And it comes back to the conditions versus waking up and saying, well, what I love to do today. So that's one thing you can consider is what language are you using around the things that you're doing? And we're not saying that you're going to get rid of all those behaviors and things right away, but it's one way that you can start to become self-aware because you cannot change that which you're unaware of. Once you become aware of it, it may be painful. However, you are now in control and have autonomy to start to shift and say, you know what? I don't know why I was doing that for so long. And no, it doesn't actually inspire me. It doesn't give me energy. And so why the hell am I doing it? And checking yourself and saying, was this something I learned growing up that actually doesn't resonate with me? Was it something my parents told me that doesn't really work for my values? So that's one strategy I like to share with people is look at the language that you're using around certain things and pause and say, why do I feel like I have to do this? Why do I feel like I should do this? And as Michael said earlier, there may be things in your life that you feel like you have to do, but can you link it to something that is way more inspiring? Can you link it to your relationships, your family, your business, your health? There are times in my month that I don't feel like something, but when I do it, like you said, move my body, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why I do this because it helps me get more energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think another point of this that you might not consider to be aware of is that a lot of times when you choose to take a more inspired path, other people are going to feel threatened by that. A lot of people in society live uninspired lives in many different ways. And oftentimes when you decide to step out of that uninspired, directionless, and maybe you have a direction, but like really in the grand scheme of things, like you don't have a vision for what you want your life to look like. A lot of times if you step out of that and start to do things differently, people are going to take that personally and they're going to try and drag you back into an uninspired way of living. There's countless examples of this, but one really easy example is like party culture, like going out Friday, Saturday night and just getting drunk and doing random hookups and that kind of shit. And if you want to do that, great. But realistically, is that actually in alignment with your vision and what you want to do with your life? To be hungover, to wake up at 10 a.m. and to have a shitty Sunday and to feel like you're behind starting the week on Monday? Like, is that really something that's going to inspire you long term? And a lot of times if you start to step out of that and do something differently, people are going to say stuff about it. They're going to be like, oh, that's crew, like he quit drinking, like whatever it may be, XYZ. And just notice that, right? And don't take it personally for yourself and recognize that in and of itself is a form of resistance from the universe telling you that you're probably doing the right thing.
Right.
And oftentimes when you start to live in a different way and you live through inspired ways of living, you'll recognize that a lot of times friendships and relationships and things like that change and they don't take the form that they used to. And you recognize that it's okay for those types of things to change and to take different forms, right? Like if your conversations you're having with your friends are all focused on things in the past or what happened 5-10 years ago, maybe it's time to find some different people to hang out with and to not only create new memories, but talk about new ways of realities that you want to show up. So
what you're creating in the world.
And that might not be the most fun to hear and not be the most easy thing to reflect on, but it served me well in my life.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Often for me, that's what has and had stifled me in my growth in the past was the fear of losing relationships. And simultaneously, you have to ask at what cost, and trust that as you grow and evolve, into living into your zone of genius, zone of inspiration, Michael calls it higher self, you will attract new relationships that support you in that. That's not to say it's not without challenge, because if you're so maybe connected to one person but you don't really have any similar values, that can be sometimes challenging to let go of and grieve. But I think that's a very valuable point that you're making, is sometimes the very thing that's stopping us from choosing to live in that zone of inspiration is that fear of losing out on relationships. So my wisdom to you, because I've been there personally, is trust that as you evolve, you will attract new relationships that match that new energy level. And you become your environment.
Mm-hmm.
Epigenetically, we become that which we surround ourselves with, whether it's people, your home environment, nature. You become they say the top 5 to 10 people that you surround yourself with, because it comes back to input. What are the types of conversations that you're having? You know, are you waking up at 6 a.m. and talking about visions and missions and life and values? Or are you waking up and talking about, you know, like you said, the party last night, and maybe things that are of a different frequency that aren't actually fulfilling your mission of why you're here? You know, and that's the question you have to ask, is why am I here? Why was I put on this planet? And if it's to rage every weekend, great. I would maybe challenge you and say there's something else within you and gifts to share. But that can be a big factor, is you've built relationships in one way of life, and all of a sudden you're evolving, and that's going to create a level of dissonance with those people, because truly it's providing that trigger, or that resistance, or that dissonance is providing a mirror back to them to say, hey, this can be for you too, in your own form and your values, if you choose it. And when you choose to surround yourself with people who are uplifting you and support you in challenge, and also lovingly challenge you, because challenge is important, you are going to feel more energized, because energy feeds off of energy. So I'm really grateful that you brought that up, because that's a big thing I see people struggle with. And even I dealt with, is like, if I grow, what are people going to think of me? And it's natural and normal. That's a natural, normal human being, because we really do want to connect with each other. We really do want to feel like we're part of something and we're part of the tribe. Simultaneously, you have to consider like what tribe do you want to, you know, choose to hang out in. Yeah. And one more point that you mentioned that I want to speak to is, regardless of your growth path, people are going to judge you. That is human nature, and there's no escaping it. And we deal with that version and the types of that every single day. So let go of the fact that, you know, you're going to piss people off. Like, you're not going to please everyone. And that's not to say that you need to be an asshole, but just know there's no absolute way you can please everyone. And everyone is always perceiving life through their own values. So if someone has a value, let's say of family, and entrepreneurship is really low, or vocation is very low on their values, if they see someone who chooses to do a lot of work in their vocation because it's super inspiring, but maybe spend less time with their family, they're going to judge that because they have different values. And you're going to do the same thing. Michael and I, health is very high on our values. So if we see people choosing things that we believe in our values are outside of quote unquote alignment with health, we might judge them a little bit, because we're human. You know, judgment is a natural phenomena, but if you can come at it from the perspective of, oh, they have different values in this moment of time.
I drank Coca-Cola yesterday.
What? The truth is out, y'all.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. But, you know, we're always filtering life through our values. And it's judgment is inescapable, but it's how fast can you come back to that neutral point, that center, and recognize, oh, that person has different values than me. I love them for who they are. They can be a teacher of the parts within you that you have yet to learn to love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's powerful. I can't remember the exact quote, so I'm just gonna butcher the shit out of it, and I'm gonna say it anyway.
I butchered one earlier, so it's okay.
It's like, gosh, how does it go? It's when you're up to age 20,
if someone knows, comment below.
Yeah, it's like up till age 20, you care about what other people are doing or something, and from ages 20 to 40, you think other people care about what you're doing, and from ages 40 to 60, I cannot remember this quote. I don't know why I'm trying to even bring it back. But what I'm trying to say is that we all go through phases, and I think you really start to truly live in alignment with your values and your vision when you realize that no one really cares what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, like for me, that day came early in my life. I was 20 years old. It was July 4th, 2012. I had started my journey of getting healthy, and I probably lost like 20 pounds, but I was still like 350. And I was just like, dude, I don't give a shit what anyone thinks about me. So like I literally went and walked around St. Cloud, Minnesota with a hockey stick and a tennis ball, shirtless, just like shooting at stop signs and stuff. And I just didn't care. I was probably drunk too. But I think, again,
We're not recommending that you do that.
No, but what I'm trying to get at is like, there will come a point when you realize that no one really actually cares about what it is that you're doing. And if there's someone who you have a relationship with and you're choosing a different path that maybe they don't understand or see, and they have things to say about it, or they have comments, whatever it may be, that's just a reflection of their own internal state.
Yeah.
Right. And then they really don't care about what it is that you're doing. What they care about is that maybe you're choosing a different path and they're scared to step into that for themselves, or they are scared of potentially losing that friendship, whatever it may be. But they don't really care about what you're doing. They just care about either A, how they think what they think it means for themselves,
right,
or B, how it might impact how they get to relate to you in the future going
yeah,
forward. They don't actually care about what you're doing. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's more caring about like the relationship that brings it back to them, because we all have a version of both our altruism and narcissism within ourselves, right? Like we as human beings have an ego. We care about ourselves. Some people, the ego is way more inflated than others, but you know, at the end of the day, it's more so how is this impacting them? How is it impacting maybe their family, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, at some point, it's not about you.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's not about you. You may feel like it's about you, but it's really not about you. It's always coming back full circle back to that person.
For sure. And when you choose to live in an inspired way, everyone that is around you is going to feel that, and they're also going to find more inspiration in their own life.
Yeah, it's magnetic. I mean, when you choose to, if you think about, oh, I have to, even just when we talk about this, however you're tuning into this, we say, oh, I have to. Feel that in your body. Like, what does your posture do? I know when I say I have to, Michael and I, our hearts cave in, our posture sinks, like, oh, I should. You feel the weight, literally, energetically, and probably will build physically at some point if you live into that. You feel the pressure, you feel the weight, versus what would I love to do today? What would inspire me? Like, it's a different postural experience. And as you shift your posture, you actually change the way that your body can access energy because of the way that your muscles are oriented, your spine is oriented, your nervous system is oriented, all that back to the physiology, right? Mm-hmm. So consider it's not just about, I don't have any energy because I have a lack of coffee or a lack of energy drinks. There's so many other factors at play that go back to your energy level.
Absolutely.
And it's probably not a lack of Diet Coke.
No.
Or Coke.
Or Coca-Cola.
It was a full Coke, but it was a Costa Rican Coke.
It was 12 ounces of Coca-Cola. First Coca-Cola I've had, I don't even know, 15 years probably.
We were on the boat fishing yesterday. Caught 0 fish, but caught lots of vibes and a good time.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, anything else for this episode?
Well, I think back to ways that you can start to consider your energy shifts. We'll drop some of these resources in the show notes. One of the things that I have my clients do to determine, okay, you understand the language you're using, you understand the people you're hanging out with, understanding how that lands in your body. When you wake up, do you feel pulled, or does it feel like there's a lot of like drudging? One of the things that I have my clients do is the values-based determination, which helps you actually understand your values. Because some people think they know their values, but your actions speak louder than your mind. So your actions actually show your values. And the greatest form of chaos is the judgment towards your own values. So number one, you've got to get clear on what your values truly are. And consider that you may not be actually living in alignment with your values. So that's one thing that we bring a lot of our clients through. I bring my clients through. We have them do it in our Inspire Alignment coaching. So that's number one. We'll drop that in the show notes. And number two is I have people do what's called a life alignment score, which helps them objectively understand where their own personal alignment is. Because I get when people hear energy and alignment, they're like, okay, what the hell does all that mean? And it's beyond just the woo-woo. There is actual objectivity of looking at the actions or inactions in your life that can determine where your energy level is at. So I'll also drop that free resource in the show notes so you guys can see where your life alignment score is at and go from there and consider how can you start to expand into greater levels of alignment that come back to your energy state and ultimately help you live in your zone of genius more often. Because you've got one life. I mean, you might reincarnate into a Coca-Cola bottle or a golden retriever if you believe in reincarnation. But in this human form, like you've got one life. So you might as well choose to live in that energy state that allows the greatest level of inspiration and truly love your life. And don't wait for the someday. Like it's now. It's right here, right now. So that's what I would share.
Live inspired.
Live inspired. Anything to add for you, Michael?
No, I think you hit it.
Okay. Well, we'll drop those free resources in the show notes for y'all. Thank you, Michael, for tuning in from beautiful Costa Rica. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you so, so much. This is Dr. Mel.
And Michael.
And we'll see you in the next episode. Peace, love, and keep inspiring. Thank you for joining the Project Lioness podcast. Did you find value in today's episode? Help us impact the lives of others by sharing this podcast with someone you know who would resonate and benefit from the Project Lioness message. Excited to hear more? We invite you to subscribe on whatever platform you're tuning in on. And we'd be so grateful for you to leave us a review about what you enjoy most, as well as what you'd like to hear more of. Thank you so much for all of your support. Sincerely yours in power, purpose, and play. Dr. Mel with the Project Lioness podcast. Keep rising, keep roaring, and keep inspiring.